So we're going to dive even deeper into all of this and what the historical significance is of this summit in Alaska with retired Marine Intelligence Officer Hal Kempfer. Great to see you. Thanks for joining us.
Great to see you, Anna.
All right, so we are hearing Zelenskyy could be coming back to another Oval Office meeting, at least somewhere at the White House with Trump and some European leaders. What do you expect on Monday?
Well, first, I hope it's going to be a lot better than the last meeting he had in the White House. It's going to be very interesting coming in there, going into it. President Trump, into the summit, I should say. President Trump said, if I don't get a ceasefire, this won't be a successful summit. And he came back. He did not have a ceasefire. And then a few hours after the summit, he changed tone and said, we're going to go for an overall peace agreement. Look, this territorial issue is not insignificant. Some would say it's bordering on insurmountable. Ukraine can't even give up that territory under its constitution. So that's a very big deal. And you brought up a very good point. It is a very slow pace that Russia is expanding into Ukraine. Some weeks back, Forbes said it would take 89 years at this pace for Russia to take Ukraine. Gives you an idea of just how slowly they're moving.
Right. And during this heated debacle, as some even called it, in the Oval Office between Trump and Zelenskyy, he was saying, look, you can't trust Putin. He has defied so many agreements that we've had in the past. You can't trust this guy. But Trump said he was gambling with World War III. Listen to this.
Right now, not in a very good position. You've allowed yourself to be in a very bad position, and he happens to be right about it.
From the very beginning of the war.
You're not in a good position. You don't have the cards right now. With us, you start having cards. Right now, you don't have. You're playing cards. You're playing cards. You're gambling with the lives of millions of people. You're gambling with World War III. You're gambling with World War III.
Look, and some of the White House correspondents, the media that was following all this and there at the time, said that Zelenskyy was practically thrown out of the White House and was begging to come back in. Now, their relationship has been repaired, as we know, somewhat. What do you think their relationship is like? We remember it started to become repaired when Pope Francis passed away and there was the big funeral at the Vatican and that now iconic image with the two of them facing one another. But where does it stand today?
You know, it's interesting. It really has changed a lot. And I want to put a lot of credit on President Zelenskyy. He has learned how to, dare I say, read President Trump. The language he uses, the way he uses it, his timing. He kind of understands how to talk with President Trump. And I think they've developed a certain rapport, a certain cordiality. And that's what I would expect to see on Monday. I don't think that President Zelenskyy is going to do something that would, cause what we saw with that Oval Office meeting before. I think he's going to listen very closely to what's been offered, what was said, and then he's going to start coming up with other options to consider. One thing he did come out today was very clear. He says, we're not trading terrain or trading land for a peace offer, but he's also bringing up, and this is so true, in the past, having a peace deal with Putin doesn't mean much. Putin simply bides for time and then he does what he's going to do, and it's actions, not words, that mean something to Putin. That's where he pays attention.
Yeah, and the concern was that even this meeting yesterday was further emboldening Putin, and he was just tapping the president along, and that is really yet to be seen, isn't it? Our war correspondent Robert Sherman has been doing some incredible reporting from Ukraine, and both before and after this summit, there are air raid sirens going off in Ukraine, showing that these barrages from Russia are not letting up. What do you make of that?
Oh, he's throwing everything he can. He's doing things on the front lines on the battlefield. He's doing these massive waves of missiles and drones going into Ukraine. With sometimes missiles, Ukraine's also been doing some very interesting stuff in Russia. They just took out a ship in the Caspian Sea, 500 miles away, and it hit a port area that's where the Shahed drone components are coming in. Those are those drones that Russia is using, those Iranian drones, to attack Kyiv and attack other cities in Ukraine. So basically, Ukraine has been hitting deep. And I think in the back of Putin's mind, he's probably more worried about what happens on the streets of Moscow and St. Petersburg than he is really about the battlefield in Ukraine, because he saw what happened in '91, and he's very concerned about that. So these deep strikes have a deep psychological impact on the body politic in Russia and also to Putin personally.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe below and download our NewsNation app right now on your phone, and you will get fact-based, unbiased news for all Americans.